We share a national pastime, la pelota. And later today, our players will compete on the same Havana field that Jackie Robinson played on before he made his major league debut.
Without question, a day of history between these two countries, the U.S. and Cuba. The important statement from the president a moment ago: I've come to bury the last remnants of the Cold War between the United States and Havana. That's the headline from there. Earlier, we made remarks about Belgium. You can watch this streaming online at foxnews.com, the rest of the speech, but there was a lot of other news to get to, and we don't want to ignore that given the events of the day. As we leave Havana, let's get back to Martha and more now.
So security is being stepped up worldwide in the wake of this morning's attack in Brussels. The Homeland Security Department here at home says there is no specific threat against the United States, but they are urging Americans to be more aware today of their surroundings. Joined now by General Jack Keane, retired four-star general, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, and a Fox News military analyst. General Keane, good morning to you. Good to have you with us today.
Good morning, Martha.
I guess one of the biggest questions when you look at what happened in Brussels is where next? How many people do we know are out there potentially plotting, and what do we do?
Well, first of all, we got to admit that ISIS tactically has been very successful. Al-Baghdadi and ISIS has created worldwide followings. They've had two successful attacks in Paris and in Brussels, likely executed by the same Brussels network. And the last one, despite the scrutiny for 4 months, was able to pull this off with extraordinary operational security. No penetration of that of any major consequence to interfere with the attack. Plus the successful attacks in Turkey, Lebanon, San Bernardino, California, taking down a Russian airliner. ISIS operational reach is fulfilling what al-Baghdadi said, that he intended to attack Europe, primary objective, also the United States, Canada, and Australia. So he is about this business, and he is succeeding at it. And the reality is, we truly do not have a strategy to cope with radical Islam as it's morphing into a global jihad, which is even larger than ISIS itself, Martha.
Yeah, the president just spoke about this very briefly, General, at the top of his comments in Cuba. What did you think?
Well, I was stunned by how little he spent on what took place in Europe. Obviously, he has a planned speech to talk to his foreign policy initiative to reach out to it, but you can't help but see the irony of it. He's in the arms of a communist dictatorship in Cuba, and he's reached out to Iran as well, at the expense of our allies in the Middle East, at the expense of the Cuban people in Cuba. And meanwhile, we have radical Islam that is on fire in the Middle East, in Africa, and in Europe. And this president is not standing up and exercising what traditionally has been an American leadership role. It was the American president who was the catalyst in Europe post-World War II to stand up against communist ideology. There would not be a National Atlantic Treaty Organization, a political and military alliance, if it wasn't for American leadership that recognized the threat and formed a political and military alliance to do it. Where is our president now doing very much the same thing to organize Europeans, to organize the Middle East, to stand up against this threat and defeat this ideology? It is a generational struggle, and we're way behind the power curve in not stepping up to it. And this president will not do it, Martha. Yeah. He will not do it.
I mean, we've heard from all of the presidential candidates on the opposing side this morning, from John Kasich, from Donald Trump, from Ted Cruz. I mean, each one of them put ideas out there. And John Kasich said, you know, come back, cut the trip short, come back from Cuba, get together with NATO leadership, get together with the members of the alliance, and figure out a way to end ISIS. We heard from Ted Cruz as well. We heard from Donald Trump talking about the visa waiver program, close the door, cut off the flow of the movement of these people. All of those constructive ideas, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, I don't get involved in candidates' viewpoints, but the major thing, the strategic issue is the one I mentioned. Political military alliance formed to stop the generational struggle against ISIS and defeat the ideology. The operational issue is ISIS. That's right in front of us. They have a bona fide safe haven in Syria, much as al-Qaeda had a bona fide safe haven in the 90s in Afghanistan, for which they blew up our embassies, attacked the USS Gold, and had declared war against us, and then came 9/11. If you let the safe haven stay in place, as we did in Afghanistan, what happens? The terrorists become more ambitious, they become more lethal, and they become more skilled. We are seeing that take place right before our eyes. So what is our strategy to defeat the safe haven in Syria? General Votel, who is the incoming commander of Central Command, the military command that oversees our efforts in the Middle East and in the region, provided testimony a week ago, reported widely, when asked the question, what is our plan to destroy or defeat the safe haven that ISIS has in Syria and particularly at Raqqa? The answer is we have no strategy or plans to take away Raqqa from ISIS. That is an incredibly defining moment for us, for that admission that we have no strategy to take away and destroy ISIS safe haven, which is creating this pollution that we're seeing in terms of the spread of radical Islam.
It's incredible. So in the meantime, al-Baghdadi operates with impunity and in relative safety, probably in that center of their operations in Raqqa, as you point out. And you've got the bomb maker likely behind the Paris bombing and likely behind this one as well, perhaps. We will find out. Basically at large in Europe right now. Thank you, General Keane. There's so much to be done. Thank you for laying out some of it for us this morning. Good to have you with us, sir.
Yeah, good talking to you, Martha, as always.
Latest from Brussels.